Sunday. And of course, on the side of Brenchong, we have Mr. Jeep, we have Majin, Singkwan, Dat Han, and Lim R.
And with that, we won't keep you waiting any longer because we do have the final match of today ready for drafting. And so without further ado, let's go into the draft.
Draft begins.
I actually thought for the final matchup you would go like, let's go.
No, I do not want to keep people waiting. And I want to, I'm sure the viewers as well are all hyped to see this next matchup. So we are in the draft, and there is the Idris ban straight away. We're now going to see what the side of, I believe Brenchong is on the red team, are going to respond to that.
Oh, Brenchong is in the red team. I thought Silverboom would. Oh yeah, Brenchong is in the red team. Sorry, I screwed up. I'm just looking at my notes, and I put out like the first game, second game, so I was looking at the second game. So that was my error, my fault. We do see an Idris being banned out for the side of for the side of Silverboom, and it's highly likely because of the ban they might prioritize on that Baron being picked up. If not, then Fox as well. I mean, Idris is just such a strong pickup right now. It's fine to actually prioritize on it. Although we've seen in some games, Idris hasn't quite been picked up at all. Anyways, the side of Brenchong, they are taking their own sweet time. Oh, draft is restarting, so probably Brenchong was experiencing some technical difficulties coming into the draft client. Like we said, we do see an Idris being picked up. I'm not surprised if we do see the standard bans throughout all the games today, and that would be maybe the Grace, if not then Baron.
With that, I think I'd agree there. With what we've seen today, it would line up something with it either landing on the Baron or Grace. But we have seen Baron being left through before because he doesn't even get picked up all the time on this initial pick. So that could be the case here, depending on what the side of Brenchongs want to do. They are going a fair bit into their bonus time once again. So either they're thinking about this one or we're having some more connectivity issues.
But then again, I believe, I personally think why Baron is not being picked up as often or not as prioritized as compared to the other heroes is generally just because Baron has been in meta for far too long, just so long. There has been a lot of counters. A lot of people, a lot of players out there have created counters for them, for him. So I think that's why Baron is no longer that priority of a pickup as compared to that of Idris or even Fox. I mean, SEA players, they are just so very comfortable on that Fox. So and also one more thing as well, the side of Brenchong, they have a few very good Vox players. They have good Sky players, especially Singkwan. Singkwan is a really notable Sky player. Taka as well. So I'm expecting great things coming to this match, especially for the side of Brenchong. Just going through, we do actually see Grace being banned out, which I said earlier on is a priority. I mean, although Brenchong has got 1 point and Silverboom is sitting at 0 points, I personally think that Brenchong is the stronger team in this particular matchup, only because I saw them play, I saw how they played, and they were once part of VG8 as well. You see Alara in response to that Grace being banned out.
Yeah, and I mean, here it's really gonna... wouldn't be surprised if we see another engage comp, at least on the side of what's more so... both teams could still pull this off. Lyra is a good support for engage heroes such as Black Feather, Ozo, Koshka, Taka, anyone that's going to go into that front line when you throw out that Imperial Sigil for them. But then it's that different kind of CC engage that they're looking for on the side of Brenchongs with that Catherine pickup. And we've seen Catherine, I'm pretty sure, on just almost every game for the past at least 2-3 matches.
Yeah, I mean, with that Taka being banned out, I hope the side of Silverboom knows how Brenchong plays and do ban out that Sky as well. Else, it's highly likely Singkwan would pick up that Sky for him or herself, for himself. So they do ban out that glaive, both of which are very reliable heroes into Sky, Taka and glaive. So Sync 1 should pick up the Sky at this point in time, but then maybe to not reveal the comp too much, they might go for the laner, probably that of Vox. They are going to go for that Baron. Oh, okay. So that's a decent pickup as well. Although there are a lot of counters to Baron, or rather checks to Baron. There is not much of a counter, but there's check. I hope the side of Silverboom do pick up that Crystal Ozo. If not, then Batiste going into this Baron. If not, then say a Celeste just to outpoke that of Baron.
Yep, and with that, it's going to be up to, I guess, the side of Silverboom here to reply to that. And as was talking about before, the Black Feather pickup, a very, it has just great synergy with the Lyra. So I hope they can play that well. In terms of a jungler, they'll probably go for someone like with range. I imagine either Samuel or Sky could be a good choice. Even a Kestrel might work out, unless they decide to put that Black Feather in the jungle and pick up laner such as Vox or Ringo. How you seeing this Black Feather go? A weapon or CP path?
I personally think this Black Feather will go Crystal Power. Oh god, I almost said what I wasn't supposed to say. I personally think the Black... wait. No,
and
okay.
hello, Petal. That's a new face that we haven't seen in a while.
Well,
I guess I should say old face, and I'm glad because I don't like Petal, but I wonder how this is going to work out for them. I mean, it could be very good counter engage when it looks like the side of Brenchong's really want to go for that dive. It's going to be the jungle Celeste as well to team up with that.
I mean, we've seen Petal play being picked up in the Challenger battles, and of course in the Challenger series, and of course in Split 1 as well for VG8. So I'm quite surprised to see Petal being pulled out this early into the split. But then again, Petal is really strong-ish in the early game as Crystal Carry because of how difficult it is to kill off the minions, and especially when you have no dive in to just remove the Petal, then you have to quickly burst down the minions, which would be a pain in the ass, especially in the long run, and especially if you allow Petal to just snowball and allow Petal to take over your jungle. And then, of course, you have the Black Feather in lane that can just farm up, have the ease of farming up because there's a Lyra to provide the extra sustain going up against this Baron as well. So it is down to how execution-wise, and of course, but then just looking at through the heroes, yeah? Both Baron and Celeste, they do very well in the late game. Petal does very well in the early game. She kind of fails in the late game when her minions are easily taken down, when all the carries has got enough damage. And of course, you have Black Feather who can just dive in deep, whether for the Baron or Celeste. What Catherine provides in the team comp coming out from the side of Brenchong really is just down to the silence and, of course, the peel for Baron in terms of merciless pursuit. I do see Petal being very vulnerable to the Jump Jet's empowered auto attacks coming out from Baron. If not, then Core Collapse coming out from Celeste as well. But of course, the Core Collapse can be used to bait out the Rose Offensive from that of Black Feather as well. So it's really just down to how well both of these teams can macro throughout the map, because both of these teams, they've got obvious flaws, and of course cons is obvious flaws, and of course there are good points as well. Like said, Petal's really good in the early game. If Petal can provide the poke in the early game into Celeste's jungle, especially where Celeste's not as good in the early game, against the Petal at least, then maybe the side of Team Silverboom might have a slight chance if they manage to control their snowball into the later game.
We'll have to see how it plays out as the teams move on to the fold. We have on the side of Silverboom, Payne Sandy on that Petal, Russ and Shuriken on the Lyra, and So Bad, Very Bad on the Black Feather. Meanwhile, opposing them, we got Mr. Jim on the Baron, Sync C1, or Sin C1, I should say, on the Celeste, and Majin on the Catherine. Get your hype in chat for the final matchups of today in the split 2. It's gonna decide who is moving on to the quarterfinals tomorrow. So, you know, there's a lot at stake here between these two teams, and Brenchong being a team that came up from the Challenger Series, I think they have a lot of potential. And as we talked about, you know, they are previous members. They have acquired previous members from the VG8 teams. I think they have a good chance at doing this. And, you know, for the fact for them to even be here in the VG8 at this point, it shows that they have that potential. But just whether they can step it up to the team that is Silver Boom, we're going to have to see, because Silver Boom also, you know, they have proven themselves to get into that initial VG8.
Well, yeah, if I'm not wrong, I think Silver Boom was as well a team from the Challengers as well. So we definitely do see both Challenger teams coming up together against each other. So it's quite interesting to see. And of course, the battle, we do see now the Munions are causing a lot of trouble for Sync 1 on that Celeste, and forcing Majin on that Catherine to just follow Sync 1 as Sync 1 farms throughout her jungle. And then that would pose a problem. Ooh, we do see Rasen Shuriken actually do go in for Sync 1.
They're going deep into the jungle of Brenchong's hand. They're going to be able to, I think, steal at least one of those. And they have and this is the good thing about when you have that Lyra on your team, you have that early kind of engaged pressure. Oh, and it looks like Catherine going to get caught out in the root. And Cincy1 going to try follow up with the auto attack, but there's going to be the Imperial Sigil that I talked about once again that just helps you invade the enemy jungle that much better. But they need to be careful as the whole team of Brenchons do rotate down in the jungle. They find the pedal, they're looking for Russ, and it's going to be Mr. Jim to jump in, manage to get the kill so bad, very bad on his own, but margin fairly low, doesn't have what it takes to help Mr. Jim in this situation. But right now, Mr. Jim just firing down on so bad, very bad, taking his sweet time and just whittling his health down at this moment. So bad, very bad needs to be careful here, because one jump jets in could kill him. Mr. Jim backing off like he was planning to go away, but then went for the attack. If so bad, very bad didn't land the on point, might have died there, but Mr. Jim kind of stayed around too long and does pay the price. Is going to fall to pedal there. And a few early trades going over, you know, just a bit of a scrappy start, but overall, do you see any kind of, or do you have any kind of predictions you'd like to make how this is going to go?
Well, I mean, Pain Sunday on this battle, like, we do see how irritating a battle can be, but Celeste is doing a really good job in, whoa, I take that back.
Yeah, is Pedal able to pick up a kill, but gets taken out by Mr. Jim as he makes his way over the wall, saving Margin's life for now, and Rasen not really able to do too much, has to back at this point. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a real scrappy style that's making it kind of questionable. Of course, you have the late game heroes like the Baron and Celeste on the side of Brenchong, so in that sense, you'd think they'd be able to get there and have that kind of strength. But you're also looking at the weapon power Black Feather on the side of Silver Boom. So that's going to be kind of tough for them to deal with the engage held on by Russ and Shuriken, and we talked about that Lyra pickup. And then I think, you know, we haven't seen much Pedal, but Pedal isn't exactly meta at the moment, but I'd call them sub-meta, because I think Pedal is no way a bad pickup. But they're all going to engage onto so bad, very bad. They managed to find the kill, and you see Pedal going into the backline, finds a kill, the trade kill onto Cincy1. And yeah, I think this is going to be a very close game.
Oh yeah, I mean, close game or not, it's just down to how strong, or rather irritating and annoying Petal can be in the early game with all those Munions. Even with jump jets and powered auto attack, there is like Mr. Jim was having a hard time taking out those Munions as well. So and that is, I think if the start of Super Boom can actually snowball this. Yeah, I mean, although Sync 1 on that, Celeste is doing an awesome job, just, you know, dropping Helios everywhere and just farming up as well for the late game. We cannot discount the fact that Petal can be a pain as well. I mean, we did see how much damage, or the amount of tick damage that Petal did on Sync 1 before so bad, very bad on that Black Feather did rotate down to pick up the kill as well. Not pick up the kill, assist in that kill.
Yeah, and I think at this point, you can see Brenchong definitely has a more coordinated engage, but I think Silver Boom able to do a very good job to respond to it. It's just going to be about how can Boom turn it around and engage when they need to start making the plays and try and take a bit more control of this map.
Definitely, but honestly, I reckon that the petal pickup is just down to allow So Bad Very Bad on this Black Feather just farm up, just to give him a little an easier time in lane. But honestly, Black Feather in lane going up against a Baron in the early game, I think Black Feather has got the upper hand after all, because with your on point you get a health barrier which can kind of nullify Baron's shots anyways, and launches anyway. So I don't see why the petal pickup was necessary. I personally think they've got better choices like Scarf or even that of like say Crystal Batiste, but petal pickup is just so far-fetched going into the comp like Brenchong's comp.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's that bad. They do go for the Frostburn first, which is going to help them slow down the targets for Black Feather to get onto. But you really haven't seen Black Feather really have any impact so far, and it is quite tough against the team comp that is Brenchong at the moment, and you can see that core collapse almost catching them out. But look at the damage just being rained down by Cincy1, who doesn't even have that level 8 yet, and they instantly delete the pedal who gets caught out of position there. So Brenchong looking strong so far. It's going to be Martin going in with the stunner, and just the follow-up by Mr. Jim and Cincy1 is impressive, as it says on the screen. I'm not gonna lie, that was very well played, and they're looking for that first turret 7 minutes 30 in, and maybe a kill on So Bad Very Bad, but he's gonna be able to get out of that one. And then he gets taken out by a Solar Storm.
I mean, although Petal can prove to be really annoying in the early game, but then we do see the amount of damage that Petal do not have up against Sync1 on that Celeste. Burst damage wise, I mean, you have a lot of tick damage, but if they do clear, I mean, you are meeting heavy hitters on the side of Brenchong. You have a Baron, you have a Celeste, it hits really, really hard, and it's just high burst. As compared to your tick damage, it's really just nothing. You can be really annoying in the early game, but that's about what you can do. If the enemies are phased, then you have an easy time. If the enemies are not phased and the enemies are just farming up, just doing what they want, they have better macro plays compared to you, then you are pretty much back to ground zero. You are using a less than superior hero, firstly.
Oh, and it's going to be Martian going in, followed up by the Ion Cannon, getting So Bad Very Bad quite low, and it looks like they'll probably just back off from here. But continuing on from your point, on how much impact this Pale is having, which isn't too much at this point. And look, they're just going to ignore the back from Rasen and go for that turret, which they can. They have such a heavy siege comp at the moment, and Martian just being the one to tank up the damage. Meanwhile, Mr. Jim and C1 not really taking any in response. And this is what's working out for the side of Brenchong. They have that Baron there who's got that AoE damage to clear out those Munions, and it just negates so much of Pale's damage. But there's going to be a fight breaking out. It's fairly messy as Martian going low. It's going to be the kill over onto Mr. Jim, and Martian followed up with that Cincy1 going to get chased down, however, and they managed to find that ace they needed. Silver Boom. I think a messy fight is what they needed. And we were talking about how a Silver Boom going to turn it around and how they're going to be able to engage. And that worked out so well for them, because throughout the start of the game, we've seen Brenchong who just had so much control of these engages, and it went their way. But as soon as things didn't, the team split up and it got messy. They were able to find the single picks. I think Brenchong's strength is really relying in those team engages and just fully committing there. But if they're not able to find that and that gets disrupted, Silver Boom has that window of opportunity to get on through, especially with a hero like Black Feather who can really dive into the backlines.
Definitely, I must agree with you. We do see a Black Feather. We do see the Black Feather going up against a Celeste and a Baron. If their position if their positioning is at fault, just a tiniest mistakes, and then Mr. Jim on this Baron can just so bad, very bad on that. Black Feather can capitalize on those tiny mistakes, then the side of Brenchong would be in for a time of fun. And honestly, their minions isn't a big problem right now. You should try to go in for Petal as much as possible. Granted, the minions are doing like a lot of tick damage, but then what worked beforehand was because they decided that Petal was the key target instead of the minions. And one more thing as well was because they just got really complacent at a point in time. Margin was really low, and instead of backing, Margin decided that it was the better decision to just, take down or stun Pinson.
Yeah, we see another fight that looks like it's going in favor of Silver Boom right now, as you see So Bad, Very Bad getting on that backline, but Martian going to try follow down and pick up the kill onto that Black Feather, who just stays alive, barely gets the stacks, should be able to do it. Meanwhile, Petal falls to since he won, and it's going to be close here. Rasen should have that Imperial Sigil up in 3 seconds, so if So Bad, Very Bad want to continue on, they'd be able to do so, as he's been able to get his health back through the Serpent's Mask and Poison Shiv. So it's actually going to be, since he won, having to back it. And luckily, Mr. Jim is up to defend this. But look at him getting dived on straight away by So Bad, Very Bad. Is it the right decision? They both fall, and they're going to have to back off from that turret, as you see Ras and Shuriken making their way back into that jungle. If anything, it's just been such a heavy team-focused fight. I realized that the side of Silver Boom don't have too much in terms of vision, and this could turn to be a problem when it comes to taking objectives such as Goldmine and Kraken.
Well, yeah, definitely. But then there's one thing we must note as well. Had Black Feather not dived the turret, then Black Feather could have taken Mr. Jim down almost immediately. So that is one thing that I'm going to say, and is that if they are going to look for engagements, and it must be in their favor. I mean, just look at Black Feather's build. He has got so much sustain as well. He's got the Poison Shift, he has got the Serpent's Mask, and he has that burst of Tension Bow as well. They are going in for another engage.
As we see Mr. Jim getting low, but so bad, very bad. He might have to back off from this one. And Mr. Jim surviving this one for only a second more since he won, going in with the Solar Storm. There's going to be more attack to take out Pain Sandy, and they're going to find the ace onto Russ and Shuriken. Surely there's no way Russell will get out of here. They put the Imperial Sigil too far away from them. You'd be better off putting it on yourself in that situation. I know they want to run towards it and then get out, but Martian with the merciless pursuit, and very merciless indeed, as they manage to get the counter ace, and now those minions are going to push into that turret. They might be able to take it, but Black Feather is there to defend, and it looks like they will. So that's going to be a turret in favor of Brenchong, as well as for Gold Miner.
Yeah, I mean, Margin then on the Catherine should have showed some grace to that Lara. But anyways, back to the game, and we did see earlier on, all they had to do, or rather all Majin had to do on that Catherine, was just appeal for that Mr. Jim, just enough time for Mr. Jim to put out as much damage as possible as allowed in that team fight, and allow Xingguan. I mean, Xingguan has got an Eve of Harvest, has got a Broken Mid, has got a Frostbite. That is going to allow long extended team fights after all. He can rival Black Feather's, he can't rival Black Feather's sustain, but then at least what he can do is just out damage Black Feather. So that is one thing that's going for Brenchong. I mean, at the end of the day, it's still looking rather equal for both of these teams.
Ooh, Rasen Shuriken does get caught out for a second, uses Arcane Passage to get away from that one. It looks like Pain Sandy not really able to engage on this team combo. It's going to rely on So Bad, Very Bad getting in there, but he's going to get chased down by this Catherine, who doesn't end up landing the stun on them, and he's now separated from his team. Silver Boom have to do something about this, but look how low Pain Sandy is, and Mr. Jim knows it. He dives in, but Renewal not going to be down soon enough, and that's going to be another kill going over to the side of Brenchong, now putting them at an advantage if they decide to push in with this minion wave. But Kraken is on the fold. They could go for the burst. They have the damage there. I mean, you've got Mr. Jim with the Soul Blade, Tyrant's Monocle, and Tension Bow, and what looks like a lucky strike, building into another possible Tyrant's Monocle. And then since C1 doesn't have the Shatter, but they do have Frostburn, Eve, and Broken Myth, which is more than enough right now. And if there's any contest like Brass and Shuriken just tried, they're able to definitely turn away from it. The vision of Brenchong now paying off immensely as they're able to spell it so bad, very bad, and he goes so low. Brass and Shuriken are going to be the next target, and there's not going to be a steal. Almost quite by so bad, very bad, but he's going to go back to base with the rest of his team to defend that one. I said the rest, but Brass and Shuriken did fall. Isn't going to be up for another 20 seconds. This is looking bad for the side of Silver Boom.
This is definitely looking bad, but just looking over to Peto's build, Peto has got a Slumbering Hearth just to kind of counter the burst coming out from the side of Brenchong. I think it's a rather good pickup. Problem is that if you're going to build that, then generally as a Peto, you want to stay behind and just allow your minions to poke down the enemies. But then, you know, if you're going to talk about poke wars, the side of Brenchong just do it so much better. Mr. Jim is already level 12, got out on overdrive. That means he has got really extended range. There is no way you could rival the amount of range coming out from both Sync 1 and Mr. Jim on that Baron. They are going in for the stage. They are definitely going to take this turret and probably end game as well if they are going to commit into a team fight.
Yeah, besieging power is just too much on the side of Brenchong. Kraken's still at half health. Even if they manage to get a few kills, there's nothing they can do. But it's going to be in favor of Brenchong as they take out the Petal and the Lyra. Black Feather's the last one left, but only for a second as he falls. There's the ace, the crystal, and the game for Brenchong. And that's the first matchup between the two teams. I think, you know, the Baron was given over to the side of Brenchong, and then by picking up the Celeste, they just had such a great late game team, but the fact that they played it so well into the mid game just made the transition that much better. Brenchong played this one very well, and I think the Petal pickup could have worked. It just didn't really get there in the end, and kind of going against a Baron isn't the right choice to choose that Petal on.
Definitely, the Petal doesn't even matter. Did not even matter in the end.
So
in the end, it was just down to how. I mean, like I said, Petal, you can be annoying as a hero, but if you do not know how to, like, if you're gonna annoy the enemies to the extent where they just, you know, just run away, give you the jungle, then of course you've succeeded as a Petal. But then if Sync 1 as a player, he's got so much better macros compared to you. You can annoy him all you want, but all she's gonna do is just lay Helios on you, and you're just gonna boom and die, and there is really nothing much you can do about it. Not even your minions can have enough time to hold you a funeral when that happens, and that was what that happens. They could have went for another meta pickup going up against the Celeste. Like I said earlier on during the game itself, they could have went. I mean, even if they do not want to pick up a meta hero in place in the jungle, they could have easily went for a CP Fortress. Yeah? It would be much stronger. So, you know, honestly, it was just down to draft, and it was just poor drafting coming out from the side of Silver Boom.
With that, the draft for the second matchup between Silver Boom and Brenchong is ready. So without further ado, let's go into the draft.
Right, so we are into the draft. Do you think the side of Brenchong would ban out this Petal?
Petal?
Yeah.
No, I don't think it's going to be there. I think we're going to see the standard bans, if anything. Maybe, I don't see a reason for Brenchong to ban the Baron, but the Baron could be a second ban coming out on the side of Silver Boom. Otherwise, a possible pickup. I mean, what we're looking at here, I think it's either going to be carry focused or roam focused in terms of the bans.
Generally in bans, you'll see a lot of roam focus. If not, then you'll pick up a flex pick, like say a Batiste or even a Glaive. We do see the standard ban coming up from Brenchong, and that would be the Graves being banned out. Silver Boom, in response to that Graves being banned out, hopefully they would go for that Baron being banned out. I mean, they can't I mean, if they are going to allow Baron onto Brenchong again, they might suffer the same fate. They might think that Petal counters that of Baron, but then it didn't quite work out in the previous game. They might go for the CP Black Feather, and they might go for the Black Feather just to counter the Baron. It kind of worked in a few fights, and then picked up a better or more meta CP jungler that would work for them. Else, I think they should just ban out the Baron if they cannot or do not have a comfortable counter, or rather, comfortable check or counter into this Baron. So, highly recommended from me and probably you as well for the start of Silver Boom to just ban out this Baron as well.
Yeah, and we're gonna have to see what they go for in terms of this ban, but it looks like they're going a fair bit too much into their bonus time, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
I believe we might have some connectivity issues once again, so looks like the draft will be reset. Yeah, as we said, as much as we can
The
predict
draft
for
begins.
bans, there's that Grace ban that came out, and we said, it's going to be roamers. As I said, maybe a possible carry ban coming out here, like something onto maybe the Baron because they don't want to give it over to the side of Brenchong.
Well, yeah, I think that's the smarter ban at this point in time. I mean, you saw how well Brenchong can carry themselves with this Baron Act. So they are going to go for the Taka band out. So it's a thing as well. They might want to go for the Sky if Taka is banned out. That might be the hero for them to go for, or they want to go for, or they just do not want to play against Taka as compared to the Baron. But then Lyra will be picked up for the side of Brenchong, which means they would have a chance to go for that Baron.
We do see the Catherine being picked up instead, Sky being banned out. There's no mention of Baron. However, the next pick will be on the side of Silver Boom. So it's up to Brenchon's wondering whether they're going to let that Baron go through with the Catherine, because we're seeing basically a mirror of what we had before. They do go for the Kestrel ban, however, so it leaves Baron open, and then they would have a very similar team comp to what the side of Brenchon had before with the Catherine Baron. Obviously, they finished off with a Celeste, and they do happen to pick up that Celeste. Baron's still on the table. Whether they, if they don't pick it up here, I don't see why Silver Boom wouldn't try the same strategy. Perhaps maybe their carry isn't comfortable on Baron, but I think most carries these days have definitely been playing a lot of Baron in the top tier of Vainglory, so I won't be surprised. Do you think the Baron would work out with the team comp on the side of Brenchon so far, however? I mean, just because they have the Lyra pickup.
Well, I personally think so. Baron does well. Baron is one of those heroes where you can just pick it. If you play him half decent, you can kind of win games with him. So honestly, whatever team comp that you go for, as long as you provide that little support for Baron, you generally would win, provided you're a half decent Baron that knows your macros and know how to position yourself well. They are going to go for that Glaive being Glaive. So early on, I wanted to say though, if you are going to say whether or not the side of Silver Boom will pick up on the Baron, it's likely, but the fact is that Idris is still open and Idris counters Baron big time. We've seen that happen before. They are going to go for the Glaive and Black Feather, just a preemptive, just to make sure, presume and assume that the Baron will be picked up for the side of Team Silver Boom.
Well, I think Glaive and Black Feather. I always have a problem with doing those kind of things, don't I? But Glaive and Black Feather have some very good synergy with the Lyra. However, it's going to be the question whether Lyra has enough heal for the both of them. It is really going to have to be which target you go for. And here's something new. Adagio is... what is up with Silver Boom and wanting to just bring kind of not meta picks into this?
Weapon Adagio has been meta, quote-unquote meta-ish, in the Southeast Asia region for 2.6 patch. they generally go the same build as that of Fox. They have that poison shift, they have the tension bow, and then they go for the breaking point. And then so I'm expecting a weapon adagio coming up from the side of Silver Boom. If that's the case, then I personally think if Celeste can carry them in the late game when Celeste hits 8, then the side of Silver Boom will have a stronger team comp because they have the CC, they have the zoning from Celeste, and of course from Adagio. And if you leave Adagio unchecked, we saw, like Minnie and I saw the amount of damage that Adagio can output in the early game, even into the late game if you leave him unchecked. Problem with a weapon Adagio is that on the side of Brenchong, we do see Glaive, who can disposition weapon an Adagio or even a Celeste. And then, of course, we have that of Black Feather that can dive in for that Celeste or even Adagio as well. So, and of course, on top of that, we have the sustain coming out from Lyra. And that would be difficult. I personally think the easier team comp to execute would be that of Brenchong. The more, if the side of Silver Boom can actually, execute the team comp, then of course, they are good with that weapon adagio. It might be their secret weapon. Oh, Lie Kang is playing. So Lie Kang is a good laner. I mean, we've seen, if I'm not wrong, in the Challenger series, I think, Challenger battles, we did see Lie Kang come up on this weapon adagio, and it worked really, really well for them. And Lie Kang on this weapon adagio, he almost plays it so much. He kind of knows the limitations of where, how far he can push his adagio to. So I'm quite excited to see, because if it's who's the other player before Lie Kang? Rasen Shuriken. If it's Rasen Shuriken on this lane adagio, weapon adagio, then I'm not too sure. But Lie Kang on this weapon adagio has shown quite outstanding plays as well. So I'm looking forward as well. I'm really looking forward.
Okay, well, we'll have to see how this second matchup between Brenchong and Silver Boom go as they load onto the fold. And yeah, I don't know. I would have to say where Brenchong's team does fall out is the fact that they have no range. But then you look over at the side of Silver Boom and they only have range. They, in terms of damage. Because the Catherine will be a melee hero, but you have that CC there between the Celeste and the Catherine. That might work out for them. I'm just wondering how well and how much effect this Adagio can do. And it's kind of a question we brought up in the previous matchup of like how much effect could the pedal do. So we're seeing a similar situation here, and there's going to be a 3v3 kind of just scrap in the start of the match here. Since C1 is going to fall, they managed to get that mid camp, but it's not really going to be worth it when some of your farm gets stolen away, and the first kill, that's worth 300 gold, I believe.
Yeah,
goes over to the side of Silver Boom. So you can see a very aggressive rotation. They should be careful, however, though, not to extend it too far. They do have Adagio, so in that sense they have a bit more sustainability, but they need to be careful to not get caught out, and they're just going to rotate up to lane. Meanwhile, Mr. Jim made his way to the enemy backs, and it's going to be up to clear those out. Likewise, Celeste, however, clearing out the jungle of Mr. Jim. And it looks like that trade's going to actually go in favor of So Bad Very Bad because of the fact that they managed to clear out half of the jungle. Meanwhile, Glaive only took the backs and then backed out. That's going to be the core collapse onto Majin. There's the auto attack, but it's not quite enough. C1 also fairly low in this situation. Majin's not going to be there to heal them. They did go back to base instead, but Mr. Jim, noticing that, does rotate up to the lane to help out, which, I mean, probably the best thing he can do right now, considering that most of his jungle was stolen, whether he knows that or not.
Yeah, I mean, whether or not he knows that, So Bad Very Bad on this Celeste, he seems really comfortable as well, picking up the first kill. She has got extra gold. I reckon she should go back and shop at this point in time after clearing out this current jungle, at least. We do see Lie Kang, though, putting up a lot of poke against this Glaive in lane, although Glaive has got a sustain from the Book of eulogies. But then again, Lei King just is so very comfortable on this Adagio, just being able to stand across, the mid line of the lane and just dishing out poke after poke. I mean, we saw the amount of damage, rather not the amount of damage, the amount of poke that he can output in lane onto the glaive in the early game.
And we see now a bit of trade coming out here in the lane. All three members of each team are up there and ready to fight. So wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be an engage, possibly off the side of Brenchong's on that glaive. He does have the afterburn up, but it's about looking for the right opportunity to go in. You don't want to go in and get locked down straight away. But it is kind of a tough one here as they decide to hold off the lane. And it's actually Cincy1 going into the jungle now and clearing that one up. So am I wrong? Is it Cincy1 that's the jungle, or are they just trying to get Cincy1,
Sync1 is the jungler. Sync1 is the jungler. Sync1 just held lane for a little bit for Mr. Jim when Mr. Jim was TPing back.
In that earlier game. But you see, it's very tough for the side of Boom to push through. They do have the Celeste to put the Heliogenesis down, which will help them. But Martian, as long as Martian's up in the lane on that Lyra, will have the Imperial Sigil to keep them there. So, it's tough for them right now, but as soon as Celeste hits that level 8, I can definitely see the side of Silver Boom having just a bit more of an advantage if Brenchong don't play this a bit more aggressively.
Well, yeah, I mean, you shouldn't be forced back just because of one kill. I mean, just looking at the side, ooh.
We see Mr. Jim going in with the afterburn, and they're now going to turn their attention to Adagio, but there's a Solar Storm coming out and actually helps them pick up a kill onto that, onto the glaive. Meanwhile, Black Feather able to pick up a kill onto Adagio. So a bit of a trade out there, and you can see that if Brenchong just push their advantage, I wouldn't call it advantage, but, utilize the team comp they have. They have a dive team comp for a reason. So they need to use that. Otherwise, they're going to fall behind into this late game, or into the mid game, I should say.
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, as with all Adagio, crystal or weapon, you kind of fall backwards in the late game, and that is really just a problem for Adagios in general. But if you can actually just snowball and then bring late game into the early game when your enemies are still in the mid game, then you probably could have that advantage. I mean, a damage advantage over the opponent's carries. I mean, Lei King is sitting on very good CS at this point in time, like 53 CS as compared to Mr. Jim's 38 CS. And then you look over to Sync1. Sync1 has got 28 CS as compared to So Bad, Very Bad on that Celeste with 38 CS. So, CS-wise, you kind of win, and it's kind of it's translated into goal difference as well. The side of Silverboom not having taken any objectives is sitting at a comfortable 1,000 early game, going up against the side of Brenchong.
Yeah, and I think that slight lead will help them, and it's why I said that if the side of Brenchong don't do anything about it, is going to get out of hand into the mid game, especially when Celeste reaches that power spike. And you can see them trying to position themselves up in this lane, since C1 being up there a fair amount, deciding to be there instead of being as backs right now. So they want to put the pressure down. And you can tell they have that idea. They're just being a bit cautious and maybe a bit too passive.
Definitely, but then we do see Lei King as well picking up that poison shift, and then already going into the tension bow. And as for Mr. Jim only has got a tension bow and not any other tier 3 item. He has got his infusion in the pocket, but then just looking at CS-wise, Lei King is just doing so much better as compared to the side of Mr. Jim. And one more thing that's going for the side of Silverboom is that they just have got better siege potential as compared to the side of Brenchong as well.
Yeah, well, we kind of talked about this earlier, at least I touched on it, on the fact that we're looking at Brenchong, who is an all melee team going up against the range on the side of Silverboom. So they have that poke potential, and that's why Brenchong really needs to rely on their engage. And you see Mr. Jim using the boots there, but not following through with it. Maybe just going to try look for a better opportunity, but there might not be one because Silverboom is able to keep them at range and at distance. So it also translates into the farm, the fact that Lei Qiang would have the advantage being on this Adagio. There's going to be the afterburn, but no real follow through there. And Mr. Jim actually the one to take more damage in that situation, followed by the Solar Storm is almost going to die, but luckily Martian there is going to have the Imperial Sigil to keep him alive for just a second longer. And they're gonna kind of have to back out of this one. I wouldn't be surprised if Silverboom continue to put the pressure on this turret, however, because they do have the damage to do so. They might look for it, and they're not gonna quite get it, because they still need to be careful of this Black Feather. And you see Pain Sandy there able to mostly pursue and stun out since he won, but there's gonna be the Mr. Jim coming up on the glaive with the afterburn and able to turn that one around. And they might have got a bit greedy going for that turret because it could be a turret loss now.
Well, I mean, Celeste can clear lane really, really fast as well, so I'm not... the turret, both turrets are actually quite low. Cool.
Damage coming out from Mr. Jim there with the tension bow, and that's basically it. Tension bow, heavy steel, and he was just able to clean that Celeste up because Celeste only at this point with a reflex block. And you can see the turret now being traded over to the side of Brenchong, but Lei Qiang not going to fall so easily, managed to take Black Feather down with him, and almost Mr. Jim if he didn't run away there. Pain Sandy gonna try follow through with that one. Mr. Jim doesn't have the afterburn just yet, does get caught up by a scout trap, but luckily not the Solar Storm, and it's gonna try and make his way around. He doesn't have energy for it, but I think he should be able to get out of this one.
Yeah, Lei Qiang did manage to pick up a return turret for themselves and for the team, and with that going for that gold mine as well. I mean, with that return turret, they put themselves 1k ahead of the enemy's team again, right? So they were sitting 1k ahead just based on farm, and then now they are back 1k ahead again. And they did not have to specifically take the turret in the early games. All they really had to do was just remove farm and deprive the enemies of farm. And we do see Lei Qiang just going into that breaking point at this point in time. And like I said early on, all Silverboom had to do is just bring late game into mid, so then they strive better because you have the Celeste, and of course you have Adagio that falls off in the late game, but in the mid game, especially a weapon Adagio, he is still relatively strong. So with this and with all the items that Lei Qiang is going to be building, he will have a lot of sustained damage going up against the side of Brenchong, and whether or not Brenchong would have an answer to that is down to this fight.
Yeah, as we see Glaive getting taken down so low instantly, and you really see the Adagio paying off, but Adagio needs to be careful because he almost gets taken out by Black Feather, but it's going to be Martian to deal the final blow. Martian, however, going to fall so bad, very bad, because no one keeping the Celeste in check, and they're just going to push on through to this turret. Glaive is going to make his way back, does have boots if he needs it to defend this one, but isn't going to pop them just yet. Might use them as an escape route and trying his best to clear these minions right now. Working on damaging Pain Sandy, but that's not really the target you want when So Bad Very Bad is still up and raining down with the Heliogenesis. Luckily did manage to save the turret, however, so that's going to be very good for the side of Brenchong, because right now the teams are both even with turrets. They're fairly even in gold. Brenchong sitting at 24.1k. Meanwhile, it's the side of Silverboom at 26.2. So they're slightly ahead, as well as being 1 kill ahead. But I wouldn't, you know, you said it will be down to the next fight that breaks out. And I really do believe that the next kind of ace we see, or at least the next 2-member kind of dying over, it will really change the way, or I guess continue it for the side of Silverboom, who have shown more aggression and control over these fights, but whether Brenchong can kind of turn that one around.
Well, yeah, but there is one thing that we must note is that because of how cheap Adagio's build is, if the side of Brenchong do turtle up, and then disallow Adagio to make full use of how cheap his kit is, or rather his items are, then they could have a chance at winning in the late game, only because of how it's going to work, yeah? Because gold advantage in a later game when everyone has got full items, even if you have a 10k lead over your enemies, it would not matter at all because everyone is at full item.
And we see a bit of poke coming down onto Ma Xin, who's taking a fair bit of damage, is going to use that Imperial Sigil early. And look at the damage, just the heal being negated by the Celeste. So bad, very bad, able to land those Heliogenesis. And they're surely going to take this turret now. And it would be a good time for the side of Silverboom to engage. But it's going to be the Verse of Judgment, since he wasn't going to jump into Lakean. Lakean needs some form of heal right now because he's just caught between all kinds of bad. And it's actually looking like Brenchong might have this fight, especially with So Bad, Very Bad being low on energy right now, and is soon going to be low on health, as Cincy won't going to be able to clean that up with the help of Mr. Jim and Ma Xin, and they're able to turn that one around. And this is why I said they don't need the ace completely. Ace would be obviously preferable, but they're able to get the two carries, the carry and the jungler, of the side of Silverboom, and they're able to take an objective from him. Probably going to turn away from this to take the gold mine as well if they want to increase their lead, but they might just play this one safe and back, which looks like it's going to be the decision because Silverboom not too far away and actually managed to stun out Cincy 1, who's not going to be in too much trouble as he does have an easy route out of there and manages me up with his team. But now Silverboom being quick about this decision, they decide to go for that gold mine, which I think that's definitely the right choice there by Silverboom to turn onto that real quickly, knowing they have the damage capabilities to do it and not wanting to give it over to the side of Brenchong's.
Well, yeah, definitely. I must agree with you. I mean, it is just down to Silverboom, and I personally think that Lei Kang is generally Silverboom's Team Silverboom's shot caller, because whenever Lei Kang kind of starts playing, it's as if they receive a revival of some sort. They kind of start playing more cohesively. They know their macros plays. They know what they need to do. They know what they want to do. So it is just down to how the side of Brenchong is going to execute this team comp, because they have the damage. In the late game, when both Sync 1 and Mr. Jim on their carry roles get up all their items. Ooh.
But we see Mr. Jim going in with Afterburn is countered out by the, I guess, Adagio there, as well as the Catherine able to lock him down, and that fight is going to go very quickly in favor of Silverboom, as their support does get taken out by that Solar Storm. It's now 6-6, and still such an even game, but it's just about timing on these fights, because right now we see Silverboom ahead, able to turn their attention to Kraken. So I think being able to win that fight, but not winning the one before, it really is just about the timing on these fights, because it's so even between the two teams. Since he wasn't going to be able to, going to try dive in actually on So Bad, Very Bad, going to be followed up by the Glaive. It's going to be the renewal, but they're able to get the kill anyway. But since he won, my fault of his Catherine, he is low, is going to try Galvin, doesn't have the Rose offensive, however. Mr. Jim probably could have gone down there. And that's going to be the Blast Tremor to pick up the final kill. Mr. Jim, I would have gone down as Mr. Jim on that Glaive to save Cincy 1, but it looks like they had a bit of trouble of their own facing off with Lei Kang. And, it's good to see this Adagio being put to work and effective use in this match, because definitely compared to the pedal pickup before, it's a bit of a change. We see the Atlas going off there. Actually, not going to be able to do too much to Lei Kang, as he's still able to push Ma Xin off, and there's the Solar Storm coming through just to help clear out that turret if anything, and Kraken's going to make his way on through. They're not going to push that any further. I think Silverboom, realizing how close this match is at the moment, they really don't want to give up anything, and they're going to play a bit more safe.
But I mean, Adagio has to, because Adagio is now sitting on a coat of plates. Oh, what happened? Okay, so
I
Adagio,
was gonna say no one looked AFK.
Okay, so Adagio just picked up a metal jacket, and that is when Adagio is full build already, right? So as long as the side of Brenchong can turtle up, farm up, get full build as well, then Adagio will start not doing any more damage, because that is where his power peak is. It is like similar to that of Vox. Once Vox reaches full damage and full build, there is really nothing more he can do, and all you can do is now just counter his full build.
Yep, and we see So Bad Very Bad being the target here by Mr. Jim as he is able to find the kill. Meanwhile, Sin C1 making their way onto late game. Very good targeting from the side of Brenchong, and they're going to be able to chase down Payne Sandy on this Catherine. And I don't think there's any escape as the Afterburn hits them into the wall. Massive damage, and there's the ace. And Brenchong's just going for the turret. I mean, Kraken isn't up now, it's still down. And they're not going to have the minions there, but I think they have enough damage between them. They should be able to get this turret. However, if they can get more, I'm not too sure, as So Bad Very Bad is up in another few seconds. But it's going to be Mr. Jim making his way onto the turret. He does have the Afterburn to get out of that situation, so he knows that he's going to use it, and he's out there safely. A very good trade in there, I guess, getting objectives afterwards.
Oh, the Brent corner. The Brent corner. Oh, this is
even waiting up behind the crystal set. No way. They're going in with the arcane passage, and do they have the damage to do this before the enemy team gets back? They realize it now, but they're going to be back in time. There's the turret gone, and they're onto the crystal. There's no way they can stop this. There's going to be the blast tremor to try, but it's not going to be enough as Mr. Jim has the damage to finish out the crystal. They're going to find the Lyra, but the damage dealers of Brenchong's meanwhile on the back line, and what looked like it could have been a Silver Boom game, pushing it to the third match, is not going to end that way, as Brenchong's making the base rush, and just that was crazy. I think, you know, you should always expect that. I'm surprised there was no vision on the side of the base when they went through that. You can see Payne Sandy going for items like the Clockwork and Echo, where maybe having a contraption would have helped in that sense, because, or just have some scout traps along the base edge, because that was so predictable. Whether
that was so
you said it. You're like the Brent corner, and then it's just over in seconds. But GG, well played to those guys.
I didn't think it was that soon, but you know, whatever it takes to win the game, whether or not you go for team fight. I mean, if you cannot win team fights, then you generally just backdoor if you can backdoor. So anyways, GG to Silver Boom and Brenchong. Both of you played impressive. I mean, Lei Keng, I must commend you on that adagio of yours. You are starting to lose damage. I mean, the adagio starts to lose damage in the later part of the game. And of course, I must commend the side of Brenchong. When they knew which target they want to go after, they want So Bad Very Bad, So Bad Very Bad. So they took her down first, and then after to focus on Lei Keng. They understand that Lei Keng really do not have the damage in the later game, and he didn't pose as a threat, as much a threat as compared to So Bad Very Bad. So anyways, GG to both of you, GG to both teams. I mean, impressive plays coming out from Brenchong. Not sure if Chad agrees with me, but it was impressive. The Brent corner has always been impressive.
Yeah, and with that, it will finish out our day of Split 2. And just to give you guys a recap of what we saw today, first up, we did have the team of Elite 8 go up against ASN Esports, and I believe ASN winning that one in 2-0, and then Infamous going up against Enix, and Infamous took that one 2-0. Impunity against Saucia, Impunity taking that one 2-0, and then